I never thought I'd be writing one of these. You always read these stories on Reddit and think, there's no way people are actually that delusional. Or, why didn't the OP just leave? Well, I get it now. I'm sitting in a Motel 6 right now, watching my pregnant wife sleep while I stare at a stack of legal documents, and my hands won't stop shaking. This is going to be long. I need to get it all out before I lose my mind. I, M32, have been with my wife Sarah, F28, for 6 years, married for 3. Sarah is the kindest, most selfless person I've ever met, maybe to a fault. Her family, however, is a different story. It's the classic dynamic you see on here. Sarah is the reliable one, the workhorse, and her brother Leo, M25, is the golden child. Their father passed away 5 years ago, leaving their mother, Beatrice, F58, with a massive, crumbling Victorian house in a high-end suburb of Massachusetts and absolutely no savings. Beatrice has never worked a day in her life. She thinks budgeting is something poor people do to be trendy. 4 years ago, the house was facing foreclosure. Beatrice was hysterical. I'm talking about fainting on the Victorian chaise lounge levels of drama. She begged us to help. She told us that if we helped her pay off the back taxes and the remaining mortgage, the house would be ours. The deal was, we move into the renovated basement suite. I pay the $2,500 monthly mortgage plus all utilities and repairs, and in exchange, the house stays in the family. She promised, repeatedly, that she would update her will to leave the house to Sarah and me, since Leo wasn't responsible enough to maintain a property. I'm a senior software engineer. I make good money. At the time, it felt like a win-win. We'd save on a traditional down payment, help Sarah's mom, and eventually own a $1.2 million property. Over the last 4 years, between the mortgage, the new roof, the HVAC system I replaced, and the emergency loans I gave Beatrice for her lifestyle expenses, I've sunk over $150,000 into that house. I have spreadsheets. I have receipts. Everything changed 6 months ago when Sarah got pregnant. We were ecstatic. We started talking about converting the upstairs sunroom into a nursery. Beatrice seemed thrilled, but Leo was annoyed. See, Leo lives in the guest wing for free. He's a serial entrepreneur, which is code for, I spend Mark's money on crypto and failed luxury streetwear brands. The tension started building last month. Beatrice started acting twitchy. She wouldn't look me in the eye. Every time I'd walk into the kitchen, she'd snap her laptop shut. I thought maybe it was just the stress of the new baby coming. Then came the Sunday dinner from hell. Beatrice had insisted on a celebratory feast because Leo had finally found his calling. Sarah and I sat there, Sarah rubbing her bump, while Leo smirked at us across the table, sipping a $200 bottle of scotch that I'm 90% sure he bought with the utility money I gave Beatrice last week. I've decided to go all in, Leo announced, leaning back like he was Steve Jobs. I'm launching Aura Tech. It's a decentralized wellness platform, but to scale, I needed significant seed capital. I nodded, trying to be polite. That's great, Leo. Did you get a small business loan? Beatrice chimed in, her voice sounding way too high-pitched. Oh, better than that, Mark. We've streamlined the family assets. We're all contributing to Leo's future. I felt a cold drop of sweat slide down my back. Streamlined? Beatrice, what does that mean? She took a long, slow sip of wine, didn't look at me, and said, I sold the house, Mark. I think my heart actually stopped beating for a second.
You... what? Sarah asked, her voice trembling.
Mom, we live here. Mark has paid the mortgage for 4 years. We're building a nursery. Beatrice waved her hand dismissively, like she was swatting a fly. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Sarah. The market is at an all-time high. A developer approached me last month with an all-cash offer, $1.4 million. It was too good to pass up. And the best part? I've already transferred the proceeds to Leo's business, LLC. He's going to be a billionaire, and then he'll buy us all mansions. Isn't it wonderful? I stood up so fast my chair flipped over. The sound echoed through the dining room like a gunshot. You sold the house? The house I've spent $150,000 on? The house you promised was Sarah's inheritance? Leo laughed. Technically, Mark, it was Mom's house. You were just paying rent. It's not our fault you didn't get it in writing. You really should have been more entrepreneurial with your contracts. I looked at Beatrice. She wouldn't look at me. She was busy picking at her roast chicken. Beatrice, I said, my voice shaking with rage. I have paid every cent of the mortgage, taxes, and insurance for 48 months. I paid for the roof. I paid for your dental implants. Where is my $150,000? It's in the company, Mark, she snapped, finally looking at me with those cold, narcissistic eyes. Why are you being so selfish? Your brother-in-law is trying to build a legacy. You have a good job. You can just go get an apartment. We need to vacate by the end of the month anyway. The developers are tearing it down for condos. They sold the roof over my unborn child's head to fund a crypto wellness scam. Sarah started crying, those deep, gasping sobs that make your chest ache. She tried to speak, to ask where we were supposed to go, but Beatrice just sighed and said, Sarah, the stress isn't good for the baby. Maybe if you weren't so emotional, you'd see the big picture. I didn't say another word. I grabbed Sarah's hand, led her downstairs, and started throwing things into suitcases. My head was spinning. I realized in that moment that I wasn't just a family member to them. I was an ATM. I was a workhorse meant to be ridden until I was no longer useful, then sent to the glue factory. As we were packing, Leo came downstairs and leaned against the doorframe, picking his teeth. Hey man, don't forget the Dyson vacuum. Mom says that stays with the house as part of the staging. And hey, if you want, I can give you 0.5% equity in Oratech for that $150,000. It's a steal. I turned around, and I think he saw something in my face that actually scared him because he backed away pretty fast. I told him, Leo, if you're still in this room in 5 seconds, the next thing I invest in will be your medical bills. We left 2 hours later. We're at a motel because I can't even stand to look at the family furniture we bought. Sarah is devastated. She feels like her mother just erased her whole life for Leo's latest whim. But here's the thing. Beatrice and Leo think they've won. They think because I didn't get it in writing, I'm powerless. What they forgot is that I'm a software engineer who handles high-level security and data architecture. And I'm the one who set up Beatrice's home network, her cloud storage, and her business emails. I've been sitting here on my laptop for 3 hours. I just found the emails between Beatrice and the developer. I found the bank transfer records. And I found something else. Something Beatrice and Leo don't know I know. Something about the gentleman's agreement that she actually did put in writing to her lawyer 3 years ago when she was worried I might stop paying. My hands are still shaking, but it's not from fear anymore. It's from pure, cold adrenaline. They think they can take my money and my child's future? They're about to find out exactly how entrepreneurial I can get when I'm backed into a corner. Aitah for wanting to absolutely burn their world down? Sarah says we should just move on for the sake of the baby, but I can't. I won't. I'm calling a lawyer in the morning. Not a family lawyer, a shark. I'll update when I can. Time passed since last post. 4 days. It's been 4 days. 4 days of living out of suitcases in a cramped Airbnb because the Motel 6 was starting to feel too much like a crime scene for my pregnant wife. I haven't slept more than 3 hours a night. Every time I close my eyes, I see Beatrice's smug face telling me I was just paying rent, while she handed $1.4 million of my family's security to a kid who still asks his mom to do his laundry. I spent the first 48 hours in a dark room with 3 monitors, a gallon of black coffee, and a cold, hard sense of purpose. I went through every single email, every backed-up text message, and every bank statement from the last 4 years, and I found it. I found the smoking gun. 3 years ago, Beatrice sent an email to her estate lawyer, a guy she eventually stopped seeing because he told her she couldn't afford her lifestyle. In the email, she explicitly asked, if Mark pays the full mortgage and the back taxes under the agreement that the house becomes his and Sarah's in my will, is there a way for me to sell it later without his permission if Leo needs the capital? I don't want to sign anything formal, just in case. The lawyer's response was a masterpiece of don't do this. He told her it was unethical and potentially fraudulent. She ignored him, but she kept the draft. And because I'm the one who set up her family cloud account, I had the metadata. I took everything. The spreadsheets of every HVAC repair, the $20,000 roof receipt, the property tax payments, and that email to a guy named Miller. Miller is the kind of lawyer who looks like he eats glass for breakfast and washes it down with the tears of deadbeat debtors. We sat in his office yesterday. The air smelled like expensive leather and old paper. He looked over my documentation for about 20 minutes in total silence, just tapping a silver pen against his desk. "Mark," he said, looking at me over his spectacles, "in legal terms, your mother-in-law is what we call completely screwed. You have a classic case of promissory estoppel and unjust enrichment. You relied on her promise to your detriment, and she has been enriched by your payments. But more importantly," he leaned forward, "this email proves intent to defraud. She planned this. She took your money knowing she never intended to honor the agreement." I felt a weight lift off my chest, but it was replaced by a sharp, jagged edge of anticipation. Miller told me the first step, a lis pendens. It's a formal notice filed in the public records that a lawsuit is pending regarding the title of the property. Once that's filed, no title company in the country will touch the house. The sale to the developers? It won't just stall. It will die on the vine. The developers will pull out the second they see a cloud on the title. But I wasn't ready to fire the big guns until I tried to give her one last chance to be a human being. I know. Reddit, you told me to go scorched earth, but Sarah needed to see it for herself. She was still holding on to this tiny, flickering hope that her mom was just confused. So, we went back to the house yesterday afternoon to get the last of Sarah's grandmother's china. The moving trucks were already there. Leo was standing on the front porch, wearing a brand new $1,200 designer tracksuit, clearly bought with my rent money, directing the movers. "Careful with that crate," Leo barked. "That's going to the new penthouse in the city. Auratech doesn't do suburban anymore." Sarah walked up the driveway, her face pale. "Leo, where's Mom?" Leo looked at us and smirked. "Oh, she's inside, curating her new wardrobe. Look, guys, I told you, no hard feelings. I'll send you an invite to the launch party in Vegas. It's going to be sick." I pushed past him. I didn't say a word. I walked into the foyer where I'd spent 3 weekends last summer stripping the wallpaper by hand. Beatrice was standing there, holding a crystal vase. "Oh, Sarah," Beatrice said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "I thought you'd finished. We really need the space cleared for the professional staging team. The developers want a clean sweep." "Mom," Sarah said, her voice cracking, "please. Mark has the records. We can work this out. Just give us back the $150,000 he put into the house. Keep the profit from the sale, just don't leave us with nothing. We have a baby coming in 3 months." Beatrice set the vase down and sighed. "Sarah, honey, we've been over this. That money was your contribution to the family. Think of it as a gift. And really, Mark is a high earner. It's quite pathetic that he's hounding a widow for reimbursement. It's very middle class of him." I stepped forward. "Beatrice, I'm going to give you exactly 60 seconds to rethink that sentence. If you agree, right now, to place $150,000 plus the interest and the cost of the roof into an escrow account for Sarah, I will walk away. I won't touch the sale. I'll let you and Leo play billionaire in your penthouse." Leo wandered in, laughing. "Or what, Mark? You'll write a mean Yelp review? We've already signed the intent to sell. The money is moving. You're a guest who overstayed his welcome. Get out of our house." I looked at Beatrice. "Is that your final answer? You're choosing Leo's scam over your daughter and your grandchild?" Beatrice crossed her arms. "I am choosing my son's greatness. You were always just a means to an end, Mark. I knew you were a sucker the moment you offered to pay the taxes. Now leave, or I'll call the police for trespassing." I felt a strange calm wash over me. It was the feeling of a bridge burning behind me, and the light was beautiful. "Okay," I said. I pulled a manila envelope out of my bag and set it on the marble countertop I had paid for 3 years ago. "Then you should probably read this. It's a copy of the lis pendens my lawyer filed an hour ago, and a copy of the lawsuit for fraud and breach of contract." Beatrice laughed, a shrill, nervous sound. "You can't do that. This is my house." "Actually," I said, leaning in close so she could see I wasn't blinking, "it's a contested asset now. And since you've already gifted the proceeds of the sale to Leo's LLC, I'm suing the LLC too. I'm also sending a copy of this filing to the developer's legal team. I have their email right here from your computer, Beatrice." Leo's face went from smug to a sickly shade of gray. "Wait, what? You contacted the developers? Mark, you can't do that. If the deal falls through, The LLC has no capital. I've already signed contracts for the office space. I've hired people. Then I guess you better start pivoting, Leo, I said, because that $1.4 million isn't going anywhere. That house is locked in legal probate until a judge decides how much of it belongs to me. And based on the email I found where Beatrice admitted to defrauding me, I'm thinking I'll get a very large piece of that pie. Beatrice grabbed the counter, her knuckles white. You stole my emails? That's illegal. I'll have you arrested. I didn't steal anything, I replied. I maintained the server. You gave me full access. It's all in the discovery phase now. Sarah was standing by the door, tears streaming down her face, but she wasn't sobbing anymore. She was just looking at them, like they were strangers. Mom, Sarah said softly, we would have taken care of you for the rest of your life. You traded a family for a tracksuit. As we walked out, Leo was screaming at his mother, and Beatrice was starting one of her fainting spells on the floor. I didn't even look back. I'm back at the Airbnb now. My phone is blowing up. Beatrice is leaving voicemails, alternating between screaming that I'm a monster and sobbing that she's going to be homeless if the sale doesn't go through because she already spent the earnest money on Leo's debts. Leo sent me a text saying he's going to crush me and that I don't know who I'm dealing with. I think he's right. He doesn't know who he's dealing with. He's dealing with a man who has nothing left to lose and a very, very good lawyer. The climax is coming. Miller says the developer's lawyers called him 20 minutes ago. They're concerned. I'm going to go hold my wife now. I'll update when the explosion happens. Time passed since last update. 3 weeks. If you had told me a month ago that I'd be sitting in a lawyer's conference room watching a 58-year-old woman have a literal temper tantrum on a Persian rug while 2 police officers waited in the hallway, I wouldn't have believed you. But here we are. The last 3 weeks have been a blur of legal filings, frantic phone calls, and the sound of a golden child's empire collapsing into the dirt. After I filed the lis pendens, the developer's legal team moved faster than a shark smelling blood. They didn't just pause the sale, they nuked it. Turns out, Beatrice had signed a contract stating the title was clear and unencumbered. By hiding my equitable interest and the fact that I'd been paying the mortgage, she committed what the developer's lawyers called material misrepresentation. They pulled the $1.4 million offer within 48 hours. But it gets worse for her. Beatrice had already taken a $50,000 earnest money deposit from them. And because she is Beatrice, she didn't put it in escrow. She gave it to Leo. And Leo? Leo had already spent it. He bought a company car, a used Porsche Panamera, and paid retainers to some influencers to promote a wellness app that literally doesn't exist yet. The developer didn't just walk away. They sued Beatrice for the return of the $50,000 plus legal fees. 10 days ago, the bank called me. Since I stopped paying the mortgage the day we moved out, the account went into default. Beatrice, of course, hasn't paid a dime. She doesn't have a dime. She thought the sale would cover everything. Now, she's facing foreclosure, a $50,000 lawsuit from a massive development firm, and my lawsuit for $150,000 plus damages. The big bang happened 2 days ago. I got a call from a neighbor. Mark, you might want to get over here. There's a flatbed truck at the house, and Leo is trying to load the industrial refrigerator and the HVAC components into it. I saw red. I paid for that fridge. I paid for that HVAC system. Those are fixtures. Taking them is not just moving out. It's grand larceny and waste on a contested property. I called Miller. He told me to call the police and meet him there. When I arrived, the scene was pure chaos. Leo was sweating through his designer tracksuit, screaming at a very confused guy with a dolly. Beatrice was sitting on the front steps, clutching her chest, doing her best dying Victorian orphan impression. "You can't stop us!" Leo yelled as I pulled up. "This stuff is ours. We need the cash to fight your frivolous lawsuit. I'm selling the appliances to a liquidator." "Leo," I said, stepping out of the car. My voice was eerily calm. "Stop, right now. Those appliances were purchased by me. They are part of the property value currently under a legal lien. If you move 1 more inch, you're going to jail." Beatrice stood up, her face twisted in rage. "How dare you? How dare you treat us like criminals? I am your mother-in-law. I gave you a place to live for 4 years. "No, Beatrice," I snapped. "I gave you a place to live. I paid for the roof you're standing under. I paid for the air you're breathing. And you tried to sell it out from under my unborn child." At that moment, 2 patrol cars pulled into the driveway. Miller, my lawyer, followed right behind them. The next hour was the most satisfying 60 minutes of my life. Miller handed the officers the court order we'd secured that morning, an emergency injunction preventing the removal of any fixtures from the property. The lead officer looked at Leo, then at the half-loaded truck. "Sir, step away from the refrigerator. If you remove property that is currently under a lis pendens and a court-ordered injunction, I will arrest you for theft and contempt." Leo started stammering. "You don't understand. I'm the CEO of Oratech. This is a civil matter. It becomes a criminal matter when you steal a $6,000 Sub-Zero fridge that someone else has the receipts for," the officer replied. Beatrice then did what all narcissists do when they lose control. She had a breakdown. She started screaming that Sarah was a traitor, that I was abusive, and that she was going to tell the whole world how I was starving a widow. She actually tried to slap me in front of the cops. They handcuffed her. They didn't take her to jail. The officer was lenient and just put her in the back of the cruiser to cool off while they verified her ID. But seeing Beatrice in the back of a squad car while her golden son stood there crying because he couldn't pay the truck driver, it was poetic. But the final blow came when Miller pulled me aside. "Mark," he said, checking his phone, "I just got word from the Developers Council. They don't want the house anymore, but they want their $50,000 back. They've discovered that Beatrice transferred the money to Leo's LLC. They're filing for a piercing of the corporate veil. They're going after Leo personally. And since he used that money for a car and personal expenses, he's looking at criminal fraud charges." I looked at the house. This beautiful old home that I'd put my heart and soul into. It was now a shell, empty of love, filled with nothing but the echoes of Beatrice's screaming. Sarah stayed in the car the whole time. She couldn't watch. When I got back in, she just held my hand. "Is it over?" she asked. "The house is gone, Sarah," I told her. "The bank is going to take it. There's no saving it now, but we're getting our money back. Miller is going to make sure we're the first in line when the assets are liquidated." We drove away while Leo was literally sitting on the curb, his head in his hands, as the tow truck driver he hired started yelling at him for payment. Beatrice and Leo are currently squatting in the house until the sheriff's sale, which is in 3 weeks. They have no power because I cut off the utility payments that were in my name. They're living by candlelight in a $1 million mansion with no fridge. Oratech is dead. Leo's investors, mostly Beatrice's elderly friends, are starting to realize their money is gone. I'm exhausted. Sarah has been having Braxton Hicks contractions from the stress, so we're going strictly no contact. NC. I've blocked all their numbers. My lawyer is the only one who speaks to them now. I'm not a sucker anymore, Leo. I'm the guy who's taking the Porsche. I'll update one last time when the dust settles and my daughter is born. Time passed since last update. 14 months. I'm sitting on a rocking chair in a room that smells like lavender, baby powder, and finally, peace. My daughter, Maya, is 10 months old now. She's currently napping in a crib that I bought in a house that I own with a title that has exactly 2 names on it, mine and Sarah's. It has been over a year since the explosion. People always ask if the justice feels as good as you think it will. Honestly, it feels better, but it's a quiet kind of good. It's the feeling of not having a knot in your stomach every time you hear a floorboard creak. Let's talk about the fallout, because it was a spectacle. 3 weeks after my last update, the Great Victorian was sold at a sheriff's sale. Because of the lis pendens and the damage Leo did trying to rip out the appliances, the property value plummeted. It didn't sell for $1.4 million. It sold for $850,000 to a different developer. Beatrice didn't get a dime. After the bank took their cut for the defaulted mortgage, and the developer's lawyers took their $50,000 plus massive legal fees, there was barely anything left. And what was left? My lawyer, Miller, was standing there like a gargoyle. We won our lawsuit for unjust enrichment and fraudulent misrepresentation. The judge, a no-nonsense woman who looked like she'd seen 1,000 Leos in her career, didn't even blink. She ordered a judgment against Beatrice for the full $150,000, plus interest, plus my legal fees. Since Beatrice had no cash, the court placed a lien on every remaining asset she had. That included the Porsche.
I'll never forget the day the repo man showed up at the penthouse Leo had leased with the stolen deposit money.
Apparently, Leo hadn't made a single payment on the lease after the first month. I wasn't there, but our old neighbor told me Leo was out in the parking lot in his bathrobe, screaming that he was disrupting the wellness industry while they hooked his car to the tow truck. Leo's Aura Tech was investigated for securities fraud. It turns out he had borrowed money from 3 of Beatrice's widowed friends, promising them 500% returns in Aura coins. He didn't go to prison, yet, but he's currently under a 5-year probation for felony wire fraud and has a restitution order that will follow him until he's a grandfather. He's currently working at a call center and living in a studio apartment above a noisy laundromat. No tracksuits, no scotch, just ramen and reality. And Beatrice is living in a government-subsidized senior living facility. It's clean, but it's small. There are no Victorian chaise lounges. There are no marble countertops. She tried to send Sarah a guilt trip letter 6 months ago, right after Maya was born. I kept the letter. It said, "Sarah, I know you're a mother now, so you must understand how a mother's heart breaks. I am cold in this apartment. The walls are thin. Mark has taken everything from me. How can you let your own mother live like this while you sit in luxury? I forgive you for your part in this, but you must make it right. Send me $2,000 for medical expenses, and I will consider visiting the baby." Sarah read it, sat in silence for a long time, and then did something that made me fall in love with her all over again. She walked over to the paper shredder, fed the letter in, and watched the little plastic teeth turn her mother's manipulation into confetti. "I don't have a mother anymore," she said. "I have a daughter, and my daughter will never know what it feels like to be a means to an end. We are strictly no contact, NC. I changed my phone number. We moved 2 towns over. My security system is top of the line, though I doubt Leo could even afford the gas to drive here. A few weeks ago, I saw a post on LinkedIn. Leo had updated his profile. He's now a high-ticket sales consultant. It's just a fancy word for cold calling people about their car's extended warranty. I blocked him there too. The $150,000? We got about $90,000 back after the liquidation of Beatrice's remaining jewelry and the small payout from the court. It wasn't the full amount, but it was enough for a down payment on our new place. Every time I walk on our new hardwood floors, I remember that they belong to us. Sarah is doing amazing. The postpartum period was hard, especially with the grief of losing a family that never really loved her the way she deserved. But she's found a group of mom friends who actually support her. She's back at work part-time, and she's glowing. As for me, I'm still a software engineer, but I'm also a dad. And I'm a guy who learned that family isn't about blood or history. It's about who stands by you when the roof needs replacing, and who tries to sell the roof while you're sleeping under it. Sometimes at night, I think about Beatrice sitting in that small apartment, wondering where it all went wrong. I hope she realizes it went wrong the second she decided her son's ego was worth more than her daughter's life. But narcissists don't usually learn. They just find new people to blame. Anyway, Maya is waking up. I can hear her babbling over the monitor. I'm going to go pick up my daughter now. She has a world to see, and she's going to grow up knowing that her dad will always have her back. To everyone on Reddit who told me to stand my ground, thank you. You saved my family. Signing off for the last time.